Hey everybody, welcome to today's video. This video is going to be about the beauty in a subcategory of YouTube videos, where creators speak about and title a video or videos something along the lines of "Why I Live a Boring Life." Reminiscent of the popular video style "A Day in My Life," "Why I Live a Boring Life" videos mention the activities and manners that make up an individual's life. This may include routines such as work life, food schedules, gym routines, etc., and excursions, or like socializing and adventures and such. Yet, how "Why I Live a Boring Life" videos differ from that of "A Day in My Life" videos, and what makes them is, rather than sharing the most provocative iteration of their daily life, they emphasize their fulfillment in simplicity. Common themes include individuality, counterculture, and philosophy. YouTube content where creators would speak about their life as this boring existence have been around since around 2012, only sparsely in the early 2010s, but over some years, this topic evolved to address its era, living in the age of technology and mental health awareness. In 2019, we see the beginnings of a shift in boring life content from creators generally just documenting their daily boring lives to creators eventually speaking up about how fulfillment and happiness relate to the topic. 2021 was the first year with significant videos on the topic, with 21 videos being released. 2022 totaled 26 videos, and 2023 has an increasing number at 29 videos, as we are a little more than halfway through the year thus far. And I can't say I'm too surprised that more and more people are resonating with the topic over time. For one, the category itself is providing representation of the lesser mentioned lax routine lifestyle, making it more comfortable for people to speak about their array of experiences. But also with the fairly recent rise of the importance of mental health and simply lived experience through the digital age, it's no coincidence that people want to share how they live happily with one another. I was introduced to "Why I Live a Boring Life" style content in 2021 by Obi Vincent. At the time, I was interested in fitness, and Obi's thumbnail features him being the absolute mass monster he is. I think he's a CrossFit athlete last I checked. So the thumbnail in combination with the title "Why I Choose to Live a Simple Boring Life" made me interested, especially in a period where socioeconomics have a very strong relationship with social media. Before getting into the themes and the bells and whistles that comprise the "Why I Live a Boring Life" content, I want to talk about the physical format of these styled videos through pace, editing, and narration. In general, some of the first things I noticed between these videos was their pace and how slow they were. This pace was contributed to through the narration, for example. From the start to the end of these types of videos, there would be often one vocal line with very few cuts in it, often feeling like a stream of consciousness. Overall, very minimal. Visually, what we'd see on screen was often more synonymous with B-roll, trying to keep our eyes and ears with narration attentive while we are paying attention to the lyrics that the person is speaking. When there was no B-roll, oftentimes it would just be a camera face to face. Oh, my mic is over here. Oftentimes, there would just be a camera face to face with the creators speaking their mind with essentially no cuts. And all of these elements together contribute to why this type of content is not overstimulating. I would say it feels quite similar to listening to a friend talk about their life, if anything, rather than you're watching a video about someone presenting this new idea where you're trying to learn something or something more procedural that you're going to follow later. And in a complementary sense, these videos result in feeling quite raw or realistic, which quite matches the actual content that the narrations are speaking of and the creators are highlighting. Kicking off with the theme of individuality among the Why I Live a Boring Life content, we can divide it into subsections, starting with fulfillment. Fulfilling, described by dictionary.com, is satisfying or rewarding, especially by meeting the emotional needs for meaning, challenge, growth, success, etc. Some people want to go to the gym every day. Some people actually enjoy the time they spend in their careers and the time outside of their jobs while they're thinking about them. Some people prioritize family, etc. What binds these examples is not just exercise is good for you, energy spent into your career means you can reap the rewards later, or that we should all enjoy family the same way. It's that the people who are doing these things have incorporated it into their own lives because it makes them feel good, it fulfills them. A quote from content creator Matt D'Avella, who has contributed to the Why I Live a Boring Life category, goes,
"So I urge you to entertain what's possible. And what I bet you'll find is that if you're bored with your life, it's not because you're doing the same thing every day. It's because you're doing the wrong thing every day."
As we dive deeper into the themes and hear from more creator perspectives, you might notice a pattern. Individuals living a life that they once thought would fulfill them, then realizing that was not the case. This realization segues into the second part of individuality, in uniqueness in desires. Unique desires were a significant portion of the Why I Live a Boring Life videos because the creators were going through a thought process where they felt the need to address their lifestyle, their slower lifestyle, their more simple lifestyle in comparison to a social expectation of having a more adventurous life or always seeking the next thing to be excited for. Obi Vincent mentioned he regularly received messages from people asking when he's getting married or having children before it's too late.
What I find funny is people ask this like my life won't be fulfilled without marriage and kids. And as much as I appreciate the sentiment, I don't intend to do both those things for a while.
He went on to say marriage and kids weren't something he was looking for at the moment because he was enjoying his freedom and self-oriented way of life. Doesn't mean he couldn't change his mind somewhere down the line if he wanted to. As long as he was content, he's golden. Other examples of unique creator desires included wanting to wear the same clothes every day to reduce decision fatigue, or choosing to eat the same meals every day for consistency. But aside from creators, another person may want to cook up new recipes in their daily life because they enjoy frequently learning and testing various kitchen techniques and flavor profiles. And although a majority, if not all of the videos I watched in this category included an affinity for a simpler life and an appreciation for more of the mundane moments, each of the creators still included a unique set of routines and activities that fulfilled them. For example, Obi Vincent really loves exercise, so he would include exercising in his day, and he would splice video editing into it, and he would try to socialize. Whereas another creator known as Acta, they would go to cafes and play board games with their friends sometimes, or cozy up with a cup of tea in their home, or draw. Yet, even with most of the creators in this category mentioning that simplicity has been king in their own life, there is a stronger sense that they are saying simplicity is more a part of our lives than we are attentive to, and it can be more fulfilling than we initially think. The YouTuber Acta has a quote in their Why I Live a Boring Life video that goes,
"Whenever we look back at old photos of our grandparents or just any photos from a long time ago, we're not looking for the extraordinary. We're not looking for the big moments, the fancy items, or the luxury holidays. What we get amazed by is the ordinary. We're intrigued by how different phones were back then. We're amazed by what the streets looked like and how families spent time together."
And I, for one, relate quite heavily to Acta's quote, because even when I've gone to sit down with a grandparent and just spoken about them with what their childhood was like versus mine, the simple things are the ones that affect your life significantly, even if you don't pay attention to it. For example, my grandparent had to harvest and grow all of their own food, versus the life I live, I have access to grocery stores. Quite different. So, although I'm not necessarily the biggest proponent of saying everyone can benefit from something, I think there is a lot of beneficial mindfulness interwoven into simple lifestyles and the creation of routines that support your personal desires and hopefully development. The third part of the individuality theme, and maybe one of the more subtle ones, is gratitude and balance. Gratitude fit into the boring life label when YouTubers would mention mindful behavior. Sitting on the couch, drinking coffee, feeling the warmth of a mug in your hands. YouTuber Travis S. spoke about his gratitude for things as simple as being able to get out of bed without assistance, through a personal experience having lost his mom in his early adult life. Others hark on the value in retraining our minds to find pleasure in the mundane, almost like a dopamine detox. Because for the vast majority of us, our lives aren't always glamorous, nor do they need to be as often as they are advertised to be. To keep us balanced, however, some of the YouTubers kept their emphasis on their personal desires, where they really adored adventure, like travel or trying out new activities, like rock climbing, city exploration, and they would take the opportunity if it presented itself every now and then. But for the most part, they're engaged in the fulfilling daily life that's in front of them, rather than continuously thinking about getting to the next out of the ordinary moment. Why I Live a Boring Life content is great and all, but what spurred so many creators to talk about and title a video that addresses their lifestyle as boring in the first place? Well, unsurprisingly, it's quite centric to the second dominant theme in this content, for counterculture. I'll talk about counterculture in division through individuality, social and societal pressures, and knowing oneself and the awareness of how something makes you feel. We as people are unique. Our experiences, our desires, our struggles, etc. make us who we are. And collectives like marketing and advertisement try to speak to many of us at the same time, while social pressures exist like the air. Marketing often tries to establish an image of happiness or success, hoping people, or more specifically vulnerable people, will search for fulfillment through the market. Because these features are heavily present in the life that I personally live, it makes watching the Why I Live a Boring Life videos of people talking about the satisfaction in their individualized, simple lives much more compelling. Through social and societal pressures, what is the lifestyle that is being valued and actively pushed upon us, the consumers, in the first place? Well, first, I sometimes laugh to myself when I hear people giving their wisdom of don't care what people think of you, because although, yes, I agree, great words, not caring how people perceive you is more of a process than advice we can immediately benefit from, in my experience, unlike someone warning you about spicy food giving you the shits or something. I don't know. Societies, like I mentioned earlier with Obi, tend to expect healthy people to marry and have children, family to stay connected with one another regardless of relationship or worldview. Social media's curated nature means everyone is doing something all the time, with friends, with partners, in the mountains, at the beach, at a festival. Just a lot of generally exciting content from a lot of different people. And of course, this isn't to say we couldn't want any of these features for our present life or that of our future, but rather it's acknowledging that society and social media can make deviating from this expectation feel somewhat invalidating. A quote from Malama Life on the subject goes,
"We're so often told to dream big, be bold, live large, and to stand out from the crowd. And everything else falls under this category of being boring or just being average. Like, that is the worst thing to be."
There was a lot of this type of thinking among the channels that posted a Boring Life video, critiquing the mentality that leaves us dreaming about where we want to be rather than where we are currently. Self-Developed spoke about this concept by mentioning if we want the life we dream about, it's about acting in the now, putting in the work, the boring work, which I don't think undermines the original saying to dream big, but instead it's a reminder that all destinations have a journey and they may affect your life. And going back to what Malama said among her and the other creators, dream big, be bold, stand apart from others, there is this underlying commentary that fulfillment comes with achieving the extraordinary. And certainly, extraordinary achievements can be fulfilling, but at the end of the day, fulfillment is pleasure, happiness, satisfaction. So to feel fulfilled, pursue the things that give you pleasure, happiness, and satisfactions. The third part of the counterculture theme is knowing oneself, awareness of how something makes you feel. A shared experience I noticed among essentially all the creators was that they once did not live these simple routine lives that they enjoy in the videos. They mentioned succumbing to the many pressures that promoted a necessarily eventful life in hopes of being content, and they weren't, essentially. Malama Life brought up, even with acknowledging that marketing and advertisement is just people doing their jobs, and social media is a highlight reel of people's lives, the constant exposure to it really changes the way we think and can have an influence on how we define happiness for ourselves. I think this concept is only exacerbated when we see credible people like our friends living out the lifestyle we don't gel with but are somewhat pressured to live. Am I really living if everyone else is doing this thing but me? This is why there's so much power in knowing oneself, or being aware of how something makes you feel. Misty Prose reflected, "It is because of my tough and privileged experiences that I'm able to live the life that I have today. It would be presumptuous of me to say that I would still be this way had I been raised differently. Every experience you've had, whether good or bad, can be your strongest asset. In having our pasts, we can better understand what we want for ourselves, despite the ongoing, unsolicited lifestyle opinions from the world around us." The philosophy theme is somewhat complex in My Boring Life content. For one, the creators are each individually sharing their life experiences, wisdoms, and principles that have led them to the more fulfilling life that they're sharing in the videos. On another hand, most of the creators will share an individual quote from someone else that probably contributed to their lifestyles, or the formation of their lifestyles, rather. Misty Prose shares a Gustave Flaubert quote: "Be regular and orderly in your life so that you may be violent and original in your work." Yanni Morales shares a Robert Brault quote: "Enjoy the little things in life, for one day you may look back and realize they were the big things." You may be asking yourself, how is philosophy in Boring Life content complex if we've just discussed so much crossover and counterculture points and individuality, and now we're learning that creators sometimes directly add philosophical quotes into their videos? Well, that's one of the fun parts about human development and finding your groove, is that we can have so many different starting points, so many different journeys, and still end in a similar destination. In this case, the simpler life. One of the creators in this category says something along the lines of, "Great experiences, relationships, and successes often come while we aren't searching for them." And I feel like I have heard this saying randomly throughout my life, and for some reason, every time someone mentions it, it usually ends up with a good ending story. Someone gets into a good relationship, or they find the job that they have, I guess, not been searching for, or they find the job that they've been waiting and preparing for, rather. But you get the point. So I wanted to include some thoughts of my own reference. This idea reminded me of the philosophical Chinese concept, Wu Wei. To preface, I did light research about this complex history and the meanings of this topic, so I shall exchange with you the information that I feel comfortable commenting on. Wu Wei can be understood as going with nature, or acting without force. An effective analogy from YouTuber Enzelganga, I'm totally butchering that actually, in his Wu Wei video goes as follows.
The farmer's task is to sow the seeds. The seed's task is to grow into crops. And then the farmer's task is to reap the harvests when they're ready. This is how nature works optimally.
We swim along with the current, not against it, making our way smooth. Swimming against the current takes effort. When we force things, problems arise. After watching all these YouTubers talk about why they live boring lives, there was a notably strong emphasis on individuals being influenced to pursue a life that would never fulfill them. Many of the creators went against their own nature due to internal and external pressures until they realized that they weren't any happier, if not blue. These lives we live are ambivalent journeys, sometimes intense, but knowing how universal certain experiences can be, like feeling the need to explain your very reasonable, routine-oriented lifestyle, these are reminders that we belong. Other people are doing the same things. We're feeling the same things. Ultimately, Wu Wei does a great job of encompassing many of the creators' journeys in the Boring Life content. They once submerged themselves in a lifestyle that wasn't leaving them content, but that's what they thought they needed to do, or that this is what content was. It was when they eventually had the courage to let go of their previous perception of happiness in success that allowed them to live without force, happily. A little bit of background data that I found pretty interesting while researching for this video was the demographic. Who was posting the Why I Live a Boring Life content? Well, turns out it is quite a range of YouTubers. There were quite a few self-improvement channels. I found a men advice channel. There were some business channels with focuses on entrepreneurship and marketing. Unsurprisingly, there were a lot of lifestyle channels, some focused on minimalism and slow living, which definitely goes hand in hand with this type of content. There were vlog channels, and what I found pretty interesting were the fitness and travel channels. Furthermore, although the videos that I watched and collected data for were in English, the content creators were not exclusively from English-dominated countries like Canada, the US, or England. After some investigation into various channels, I also noticed quite a few creators were also from Asian countries. And in that same vein, looking through the Why I Live a Boring Life category, you can find Caucasian creators, Asian creators, Latinx creators, and some African American creators, aging anywhere from early adult life and on. So that's about all I have to say on today's topic for the Why I Live a Boring Life video category. Yeah! I've been pretty interested in the topic for a few years, so I'm glad I got around to laying it out. And I hope you enjoyed too. I recommend you go watch anyone in this category, but I will link some creators that I referenced in the video in the description. So beyond that, I hope you have a good day or a good night wherever you are. Cool. Peace.